Welcome to MGAA Conversations, our new podcast channel where we'll be discussing with an exciting number of guests all things related and topical within the ever-growing MGA community. Welcome to our latest MGAA Conversations podcast. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Tara Foley, Chief Executive Officer, AXA UK and Ireland. Tara, good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, and thank you so much for that lovely welcome. I'm delighted to be here.
Really looking forward to this conversation. I'm sure all of our listeners are the same. So let me start off. Being a very successful female in our industry and beyond, I know our listeners will be so keen to hear from you in terms of what advice would you give to other women in terms of building their career and actually aiming for success.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I contemplate regularly. What is good advice to give around this? And I think my conclusion is I can only talk about what I've found has worked for me. And I think there's probably two or three things that I find has worked and continues to work for me. One would be, I think it's so important to have mentorship. So to look for opportunities to find mentors. And by this, I don't mean, your line managers or even necessarily people in the organization. It's good to have an objective person who doesn't have skin in the game or a vested interest with the outcome of whatever scenario you're talking about. So I think seeking out and finding those mentors, and they can be family members, they can be other people from industry, whoever, but somebody that you can download everything to, that you can chew through kind of issues, problems, ideas with, and then you can have this sort of trusted confidant, if you like, a person who's objective and can really play that role for you. I have found over the years that's been invaluable, and I've had mentors who've really, sort of provoked me and made me think much more broadly than I had been thinking myself. They could see things that I wasn't seeing. So I think that's number one, I would say. For me, I would also say what has worked for me, and I think is important for everybody actually in their career, is to not, push yourself out of your comfort zone. So take risks, not I would say take calculated risks. But really, if you find that you're very comfortable every day, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. So from my perspective, I think I've often taken a role where, look, it's not, there are elements I'm going to have to learn to excel at it. And I think women, always, we will look at the job description and say, oh, I can do, 7 of those things, but I can't do 3, so I won't apply. Right. And your typical... Right. Our male colleagues will look at them and go, I could do 3 of those things, so I'm applying. Nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's just more, I think we women need to be prepared to just take that little bit more of a risk and push yourself out of your comfort zone. What's the worst that can happen? It's usually, I usually think of it in those terms. What's the worst that can happen? For not something, maybe potentially the job isn't right and you move on. What's the best that can happen? You learn a load of stuff and doors open, etc. So it's worth the risk usually. And then I think the third thing I would say, and this is probably it depends on your style, but for me, I find being organized works well for me because there's so many demands on your time. I mean, I'm a mother to kids, and lots of people have caring responsibilities, whatever they look like, and other responsibilities outside work. You have a lot of demands on your time, and I find you need to be quite structured, and also in some cases you need to be very clear about what you will do and what you won't do, because people will just keep taking, the more you're prepared to give. So you have to think about yourself, your own balance, and how I just find it helps me with my balance if I'm quite structured and quite planned about things. Obviously, there's always the last minute changes, and that happens constantly. But in general, if you have scheduled as much as you can, you've got some idea of what's coming, you can prepare, etc., etc. So for me, I've found and continue to find those 3 things help me.
Okay, that's 3 excellent nuggets of advice. Absolutely. Could I just go back to your first one on the mentorship? Would you recommend that you just have one mentor, or do you think that you can work if you've got 1 or 2? What worked for you best, and how would you recommend that?
So for me, I've had a number of mentors, but never more than one at the same time, if you know what I
Okay,
mean.
right.
So you go through different stages of your career and you get exposed to different people. And you may have a brilliant mentoring relationship for a couple of years, and then whatever, people go their different ways, and it evolves, and then you are exposed to somebody else who you think actually has some really interesting insights. I do think, though, you have to be proactive. I don't think I've been part of mentoring schemes offered by the workplace, and
Yeah.
it's hit and miss really whether that's going to be effective. How I've found to be the most effective for me is, I don't know, you go and you see some speakers, or you get exposed, you spot somebody that you think they're interesting, they sort of pique your interest, and then you see
Yeah.
if you can request that mentoring relationship with them. So I've been proactive about it.
Okay, that's great. That's really good advice, and that's probably sort of brings it quite nicely to the sort of the next theme, which is around the infamous sort of war for talent. Which is a well trodden path, certainly over the last sort of number of years. You would have no doubt seen, if you look at the MGA community. The MGA community has drawn a lot of expertise from sort of the company market. For various reasons on that. So I'd be very interested in terms of your own view, in terms of how you see it personally, but also in terms of what AXA are doing, because from my own experience, AXA's in-house training is absolutely fantastic. I remember being a sort of help moderator your bordereau, which were absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed that. So you are sort of real leading in terms of what you're doing about retaining and attracting school leavers. So if you could perhaps give your own personal view and then what AXA are doing, I'm sure our listeners will be fantastically interested in that.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, this one I'm very passionate about. It's very close to my heart. As you say, this war for talent is real. It will continue. It's very important that we think about the type of workforce we want now and in 3 years, in 6 years, etc. One thing that I've been really struck by when I joined Insurance First, and I continue, to talk about this and think about this, is the fact that somehow we have not been able to capitalize on how purposeful this industry is. What is insurance? It's the democratization of risk. There is nothing more purposeful than that when you think about it. So I find it fascinating. And also, we talk an awful lot about data science, data scientists, all of these being careers that are seen as being really exciting in the tech sector. Go and work for Amazon, go and work for Google, be a data scientist. Again, to me, I don't think we've done a good enough job of marketing what the insurance industry is about. Yeah. It is the birthplace of data science. It's in the DNA of the industry. And instead of going to Google and Amazon and selling people stuff they don't want with your data science, with us, what you would do in the insurance industry is you'll chew through all of the major issues that are facing the world today. So what are we looking at? We're all concerned with what forces shape the nature of the risks that we're looking at, and what are they? Climate change. What are they? Technology, AI, cyber. All of the big issues that society is facing. These are issues that we need people to be actively involved with. And then, the end game of all of this is we show up for people when they really need us, when they're vulnerable. So to me, it's an industry that not only does it offer very empathetic career paths, it also offers it's got the full spectrum. If you want to be challenged intellectually, well, there's plenty of that. If you want to be very people focused, there's plenty of that. And I just think we've got to get better at how we explain. The insurance industry has this kind of image, sort of grey, boring image, which couldn't be further from the truth. So again, I think we need to do a really, really sterling job of marketing to all potential employees the types of careers that they can have in the insurance industry. And I think those careers are really fulfilling and purposeful careers. So that's my first point. But then in terms of what we're doing, well, we do a lot in this space. We are again very thoughtful about the types of roles that we will be looking for going forward. And we're thinking about how do we offer training and capability building across all of that. So one of the things we've done is we've launched some new academies in the organization, which are going down really well, really brilliant, actually. I really like them. One is an underwriting academy. We launched this in our commercial business, but interestingly, it's
Okay.
you can, if you're somebody who has been in one of the other businesses, health or retail, and you haven't been in the underwriting tranche of career building, you can flip in and you can begin in the academy to build out a skill set, and you can then further enhance that skill set on the job, and you can enter a career path that otherwise probably wouldn't have been open to you. We've also,
It's
it's
interesting.
very interesting. And we know, in the underwriting space, there's a lot of competition for skills there. So the more we can
Yeah.
do to create and build that capacity internally, the better. Another academy that we've launched is our Data and AI Academy. And I think this is really important because we all know, it's probably the most overused phrase at the moment, but Gen AI is, the answer to everything. I mean, that may not be true. It may not be the answer to everything, but it certainly will play a significant role going forward. And, we're doing a lot with that. We're offering tools to all colleagues so that they can play around and get to know this technology. We've got a lot of use cases going on. We've got training academies. So we're making sure that we are thinking of the future in terms of equipping all of our colleagues with the types of skills and capabilities that they'll need going forward. And then I think in terms of, there's the skills piece, there's the purpose piece, but then there's also what kind of environment are you creating for people to work in? And we want AXA to be a destination workplace. And that means, you have to be thoughtful now about what does the workplace mean? There's a physical office aspect, there's your home aspect, there's multi-generational, for the first time 4 generations working side by side, each wanting a slightly different thing out of the workplace. So I think creating a culture and an environment where people feel that they can and want to contribute is another very important part of the equation. And we've been doing a lot of work on that and plan to do a lot more in 25, sorry.
Yeah, because I think that's really interesting because I think sort of going back in sort of my time, very very long time ago, you went for interview with jobs and you liked the firm and hopefully you got it. Where actually now I think firms are there's a lot more due diligence for people wanting to work with firms to decide whether their right culture is there, whether they want to actually work for that organisation. When perhaps that's a new generation thing than perhaps it was in my generation actually.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're doing in terms of having that different toolkit and that flexible toolkit to attract and retain sort of the real sort of underwriters, data, the AI people going forward, I think is very, very important because I can't see, as you've already touched on, I can't see this going away in terms of this attraction. I think the other thing I sort of share again, because I think your point around the greyness or dullness of insurance industry, probably we need to do more collectively try and get out of that. But I think it was the LMG group actually, they did a presentation to sort of like a next gen sort of college university, and they just put a pictorial sort of maze up on the wall where they said, they had a rock concert, they had sporting stadiums, they had art, they had horses, and said, this is the industry which we work in, who insures, which actually was so powerful. I thought when I was told about that, around getting people to say, "Oh, really? Well, I could be involved in underwriting sports stadiums or non-appearance," and we just don't promote that well enough. I think you're absolutely right.
I love that example. So, I love that. That's great. I'm going to be thinking about
that. Okay, so as in most of my sort of podcast episodes, I cannot move or swerve away without talking about regulation, which won't be a surprise to you from that perspective. So again, just a couple of sort of insights from you, if I may. So, how do you see the direction of travel? Probably number one. And if I start off with the second bit, is that what's your view on proportionality currently? And start from there, if I may.
Look, I think there's no getting away from the fact that we are in an industry that's highly regulated, right? And that the intention of that is all for the good. So, making sure that we are all required to focus on the outcomes for our customers and on understanding, the value chain for our customers and making sure it's fair. that is a good thing, and it is the right thing. So, the latest manifestation of this will be consumer duty, which, everybody has been grappling with, trying to put the best efforts into implementing it. I think, so again, we're very supportive of making sure that regulation is implemented in a way that it supports the end customer. And I think what's important in terms of proportionality is to make sure that this is the result of conversations with the regulator and the industry. And, we've got, there's the ABI, then we're all sizable players who have many touch points with the regulators. And I find the regulators are genuinely curious and trying to understand how do we do this in a way that makes sense? Because what you don't want to do is inadvertently add cost that then gets passed on to the customer via the bureaucracy surrounding the implementation and the maintenance of the controls, etc. Which, again, with technology being what it is, shouldn't be the case. I think what's also important is that this dialogue with the regulator and the industry is critically important. One, to help shape what the regulation looks like, and two, then to understand, people who are implementing things on their best efforts when it's not always fully defined. There is interpretation in terms of understanding what the regulation means. And I think then there's an important role for the regulator to play once things have been implemented in sort of articulating what they see, what good looks like, so that you don't have different standards across the industry, which I think is the worst end case for us. And there's a really important role for the industry and the regulator to play in that.
Yeah, I think your comment around conversations is absolutely critical, because I think we have an obligation across all of our brokers, MGAs, insurers to actually help the regulator understand as forensically as possible as the industry we operate in. I know that the FCA have a lot of sort of people from the industry, in order that we're working and having that dialogue which there says regulation in this area is correct, and that and we fully support that. I think some of the challenges have been, and I'm sure you would have had that yourself, when they looked at the fair value assessment, that was quite challenging for the broker market, and actually stifled competition, because some brokers actually withdrew products on the basis that it was very onerous and very sort of uncost effective for them to do it. And if I may ask you, just probably a pivoting around on the proportionality, there obviously is a cost to all businesses around compliance and regulations, oversight and governance. Does that give you any concern in terms of the direction of travel of that cost, in terms of FTE costs and whatever, that it would stifle competition, or do you feel the balance is okay at the moment?
I mean, again, look, this I think, because of this point around interpretation, you could have thousands of FTEs on this if you want, or you could have 20. This is where this conversation and this industry standard piece is very important, because we, the people who are running the companies will understand what it takes to deliver this stuff. And I think, the last thing that anyone wants, including the regulator, as an outcome of this, is that competition gets stifled and some people find it to be a barrier to entry, if you like. That's not what anybody wants to see here. So from my perspective, I think currently the balance in terms of what we want to achieve by the regulation is right, but how it's implemented and how it is policed on an ongoing basis and how we hold ourselves to account, that's where we need to be very thoughtful. And I think technology probably has a huge role to play there in terms of trying to automate as much of the tracking of this as possible. But that is, you can have overheads, and we need to be mindful of that as we move forward in this space.
Yeah, a very interesting insight from that piece. So looking forward in the future, sort of, hopefully you and I have a conversation in sort of 12 months' time. What would you be hoping to share with me and our listeners in terms of what AXA have done, anything you've done sort of personally? I'm really interested if we could play forward 12 months.
Yeah. So for us, I'm really, first I want to say I'm really pleased with my first 12 months in the role. So when I took on the role, you'll know 23 was quite the year in terms of challenges. And,
Yeah.
we had this cost of living crisis hot on the heels of COVID, massive inflation we hadn't seen the likes of in decades. We had geopolitical issues, just this poly crisis world that we're living in. And that presented a lot of challenges to navigate through 23. And when I took on the role, there were profitability issues with several. We've got 4 businesses with, two of those businesses, which is, well, actually 3 out of the 4, which is unusual. But we have worked on that, and I'm really pleased with how we're progressing this year. What I want to continue focusing on for the rest of this year and next year is a number of things. One is we're going to be looking to continue to focus on technical excellence. And by that, I mean pricing, underwriting, and claims capabilities. I think, it's easy to lose sight of them being the kind of hygiene factors that you need to be really brilliant at all of those 3 to be very successful in this market. And with everything else going on, it's easy to lose sight of that. So we have been and will remain very focused on technical excellence in those areas across all of our 4 businesses. I also will be looking at, how we can fully leverage technologies and new emerging technologies. And really that's about, when you think about Gen AI and what it can do, a lot of what it will deliver is creating capacity in the organization. We're not thinking of it taking out loads of our colleagues. Really what it certainly in the initial stages of the implementation, which I expect to last a couple of years at least, it's going to be more about augmentation and freeing up colleague capacity that we can then choose how to invest. And I think we'll be thinking about investing that in relationships with our broker community, with our end customers, with our suppliers. We'll be thinking about investing it in the definition and design of products, making sure we stay relevant. So we'll have capacity that we can redeploy to strengthening service capabilities, thinking about new products and services, looking at relationships, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's something that will be, I hope we'll have made advances in over the next 12 months. And I think another thing that will be on the agenda is very much the people, the talent focus. So thinking, I want to work on this sort of workforce of the future, a forecasting out for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Who do we need, where, on what? Trying to get a handle on that so that you can actually set your organization up to recruit and to train and to build that capability that we're going to need.
Yeah, a lot in that. And I think one of the key points is you say that the Gen AI actually will be complementary to to your workforce in terms of that, where there's this sort of panacea that it's going to take out swathes of FTEs, and I just don't see that. I think it's been working alongside, which is I think very encouraging. And the more the industry talks about that technology to be complementary as opposed to replacing, I think that gives everyone a lot more confidence, not least the regulator as well. I think from that perspective.
And I think there's a bigger question here as well. We are all running sizable organizations that contribute a lot to the local communities, etc. There's a big moral and ethical issue here. What do we want to end up being? We're in the position to influence this. Do we want to end up with our children in a society where you get paid by a tech company to not go to work because they're controlling everything, and that is, I don't believe that's the right way forward. I love technology, I embrace technology, but as a complementary, as an enabler, not as the end in itself.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, my final question, actually, as you're aware, we as at the MGAA, have a fantastic relationship with AXA. And your expanded team, you're a valued sort of platinum sort of partner of ours. I just wanted to ask sort of a question both for me and for all of our listeners in terms of why you see partnering the MGAA so important.
Well, as you just said, we have a very long history in this space. And again, we're absolutely delighted and very proud to be. I think we're the sole platinum status, so we're very pleased with that. Look, we have a long history of working with specialist schemes, with MGAs, etc., for us, it's part of this. There is no one organization that has the answer to everything. It's by partnering, by collaboration, that we bring the best results to our customers. So we can't be specialists in everything, and we don't want to be. What we get a lot of capability by partnering with members of the MGAA organization. We've got long and successful histories of that. I think we learn from each other. We can provide things to members of your organization that you don't have, and vice versa. So it's a very complementary, symbiotic relationship that we have. And I think for us as well, we see the value in it. We've got areas that we want to have footprints in, but it would take us forever to build out specialist capabilities and the underwriting capabilities that would be needed, and those kind of technical skills. So partnering with the right organization really works for us, and it's something I hopefully that you can see by our active involvement. We often will provide expertise or assets that we have. An example being our climate training, which we're really proud of.
That's right.
We invested a lot of money in that. We've mandated all of our colleagues go through the whole lot of it, which is quite long. So it's probably not something everybody wants to do, but I found it fascinating, and it's a really great asset. And we've opened that up and provided it to all members of your organization's modules. I think again, these are the types of things that we can do in partnership together.
Fantastic. Well, I say I'm sure that partnership will continue, and we've got a great relationship with you and your team. And again, personally, thank you for your sort of continued support to the association and to all of our members. So, Sarah, look, that it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. It's been very insightful, very interesting. We covered a whole host of sort of topics, which I know sort of the podcast listeners will be very, very interested too. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much for your time. It's much appreciated.
And huge thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Many thanks for listening. We welcome all feedback, so please get in touch with your suggestions on topics and future guests. Please don't forget to subscribe on your chosen platform so that you don't miss out.